Get back to work. Checking all our phones.
No. We're checking calendar. I'm trying to get our meeting.
Push it on Tuesday.
So there's some fruit and some water, but we're going to kind of get back at it. How's that? 101. So we're talking about what does a pastoral council do. Is that one locked? Put my hand in the shadow.
There you go.
Okay. So you build a team. We use a discernment. I recommend a discernment process. Clarify the purpose. What are you going to do? You're going to publish a pastoral plan. You're going to discern the will of the Holy Spirit. So the next step you would do I call it the 5 systems assessment. So I think I was saying earlier, there are lots of frameworks and lots of models out there for doing a pastoral plan. I just happen to like this one. It worked really well for us, and I've been sharing it with other parishes. You may change it after your first pastoral plan is done. You may stick with this, but it's a great framework to get started. And the 5 systems of a parish are evangelization. You guys can say it.
Evangelization, fellowship, discipleship, ministry to serve,
worship. It's just a framework that you can start to build your plan on, especially when you're just getting started. So when we're doing the 5 system assessment, pastoral council is going to go out and collect facts and data. Lots of analysis. You're going to get clarity on the vision. We'll talk about that. And you're going to do a SWOT. How many people are familiar with a SWOT? Okay, good. So SWOT is just a tool used all over the world, and it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's just a tool, just a framework, but we'll use that along. So in terms of the 5 system assessment, one of the first things we do is clarity of vision. Okay, and I'll tell you, when we first started this, as our pastoral council, we spent entire council meetings, 3-hour meetings on each one, just to get clarity of what it meant. Because, see, Mark and I can sit and have a conversation. We can talk for a whole hour over a cup of coffee about our favorite pets. And we could be talking for a whole hour before it dawns on us that you're talking about a cat and I'm talking about a dog. Right? So getting clarity of the vision and clarity of the definitions was really, really important. And my favorite one to share with you is we got into fellowship. So we were like, okay, what is fellowship? So and what do we do for fellowship? We do it as a system. I say, okay, well, we got Boy Scouts, we got Girl Guides, we've got the fish fry, we've got the Mother's Day lobster supper, we've got a basketball tournament for the high school kids, and I read this long list and I'm like, oh, we're actually pretty good. Like, we got this fellowship stuff nailed. And there was one person on our senior leadership team and one person on our pastoral council, 2 very different people, but they both kind of kept asking the same question, and they were like, how does that make us any different than the Rotary Club or the Lions Club? It can't be what it's about. What does this Christian fellowship mean? And we actually spent a lot of time, we always put the word, in the first year or so, we always said Christian fellowship. Christian fellowship. If that's a purpose or a system of a church, what do we do? Right? And we had to spend a lot of time, what is Christian fellowship? We had to spend a lot of time discussing and exploring, and you can see that one alone took us 2 or 3 meetings, because we spent the first meeting brainstorming, well, what do we do for fellowship? And then we started challenging ourselves, that's not really fellowship. Oh, okay, if it's not fellowship, then what is fellowship? And then, anyways. It came down to, we were really successful parishes, every person in that parish is known, is loved, and is cared for. That was the definition we ended up with. We had gone from 3 small churches where maybe everybody knew everybody. We're now one big church. And we knew that you could very easily just become a number, just a bum in a pew. Like that was really like a real possibility when now we're all merged into this big, and we're like, well, that can't be good. So anyways, I'm going on. We spent a lot of time. In the end, we got some information from HTB, Holy Trinity Brompton, that does Alpha. And they talked about these connect groups. And they talked about these small P pastors. Because prior to this, when your spouse was rushed to the hospital, you call the priest, you've got to come you've got to come to the hospital now, you've got to help me out. Or someone was diagnosed with cancer and they're really traumatized. They go to the priest. Everybody's going to the priest, right? Come pastor me. Well, that's not possible in a large church. And it was denying those of us who are baptized to live out our baptismal calling, to love each other, right? And support each other. So we started to take a look. It's all about having a personal relationship with other people in our parish. And we didn't really, this whole parish renewal, at the root of it, it's all about relationships. It's about your relationship with Jesus, encountering Jesus, right? It's all about your relationships with parishioners, other members of the body of the church, the body of the church. It was your relationship with other non-church people. It was all about relationships. So then we started thinking, well, what do we do for relationships? What do we do to promote developing healthy, spirit-filled relationships? Connect groups became our strategy, but it ended up being, how could we be a community of communities? Since that time, by the way, I've gotten even more research. There's research out now that when someone joins a church, so let's say you finished Alpha and you decide to kind of keep going, or you come to visit, you moved into town and you visit a church. If you have not made a friend, maybe not a best friend, but if you've not made a good friend at the church within 4 to 6 months, you will stop going. Especially in today's secular world. Okay? It's a bad experience. You feel lonely. Like, this is about the elimination of loneliness. It's about the elimination of just being a bum in a pew. One of the things we started doing was name tag Sunday. You guys doing name tag Sundays yet?
No.
Yeah? Oh, I really do recommend those. Because they were like, have you guys tried them?
We tried it in another way, but it was Father's idea.
Well, I still recommend name tag Sunday. Anyways, and let me tell you, I thought, like, how can this be a big deal? Talk about culture change and reason. It took a while, but we had to like warm people up to it, and we're only going to do it once, and everybody will wear a name tag, and then during Mass, just before the Mass starts, we ask you to turn to somebody and be their prayer partner, but you know their name. Well, this is interesting. I'm a cradle Catholic. I've been going to St. Benedict since it was one of the previous churches. I don't even sit in the same pew. I kind of move around. I'm a very extroverted person, in case you haven't noticed, right? But I didn't know the name. I just, like, people just sit around me. Yeah, they go to my church, and I might be in the grocery store, and I might, maybe. We started doing name tag Sundays. And now we do it every month. We've been doing it now for 7 years now, right? Now, I'm in the grocery store. Someone come down the aisle and it's like, Joe, hey, how you doing? Because I know your name, I know your face, I know you from church. Name tag Sunday. Whereas before, you're out of context. Because if I only recognize you if I'm in church, and I only recognize you because I'm on the hospitality team, so I'm greeting people, right? What a difference it made. So it's just those little things, okay? So back down to clarifying what is fellowship, getting a common definition that everybody on the pastoral council and everybody in the senior leadership team can land on. What I have shared with you is what we spent 2 years working through. This is what we kind of landed on. So you can take that and springboard from it, because it's got to be for you, okay? But fellowship is about Christian fellowship. It's about eliminating loneliness. It's about having a friend who journeys with you from your church. Evangelization. Remember I told you we discovered we were not an invitational church? So, well, that had to be there. It meant evangelization is about invitation. It's about encountering.
Jesse's.
Sorry about that. It's those markers that I told you. They're cheap markers from the secondhand store, and they spell words wrong.
Like our Lord's name.
Yeah. Radical hospitality and sharing your witness. We missed this in the beginning. We are like evangelization. Yeah, we're marketing. We're going to advertise. We're going to bring people in, right? They're all going to come into this alpha. But then the second part of evangelization is I am a disciple, and I share my witness through how I live my life. People are like, that Becky, she's always calm, and she's happy, and she's filled with joy, and she loves people. No wonder what's so
Every single one of those was true, but the calm part.
But you know what I mean? And then people would approach you and ask you questions. Well, we realize that part of evangelization is how do I share my relationship with Jesus with others? That's part of evangelization. And as Catholics, we're probably not very good at it, right? So anyways, that was all under evangelization. Fellowship is loneliness. Everybody's known, loved, and cared for. Discipleship, man, we had a lot of fun with this one. We went round and round and round. What was discipleship? What was in? What was out? The gist of it is adult faith formation. I have a relationship with Jesus. I came out of Alpha, and I now have a relationship with Jesus. And now I want to continue to grow and form as an adult. Guess how much money we were spending on adult faith formation?
None.
Right. How much do you spend on children's faith formation?
Millions.
Millions. Right? And it's just kind of like, and just, I don't want to get into the school system, but imagine if you spent the millions that you spend on child catechetics or child school systems, and you spent it on adult faith formation and evangelization. You would change the city of Omaha. You would change the world. So these were some of but we had a lot of fun. And people really get evangelization and discipleship confused. It's because they're, and it was like the cool buzzword there for a while, because the Pope was always talking about evangelization. So we were seeing stuff come out of like even our archdiocese, and everything was evangelization, like, because it's like we're all doing it, but we're like, that's not evangelization, that's discipleship. So we put sacramental prep under the umbrella of evangelization, like this. So when you're doing strategies, it kind of fell here. Our giving strategy, even though finance council stuff, but if I'm living as a disciple, I am called to give. In the same way I'm called to serve. So this like called and gifted. We used strength finders, and we rolled that out to everybody. It doesn't matter what you use, just use something. But there were also, we started in the beginning, and so we were putting on Bible studies and all kinds of courses. And Father James had like this little video company called the John Paul II Institute, and he was making all these videos on dogmatic theology and stuff, and everybody, and we said we want every single member of the parish to attend or to do adult faith formation. And here's the curriculum. So we had all kinds of Bible studies going, but everybody was coming into the church. So Monday night, and then there was another one on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and the parking lot was full. And we did this for 2 years. And then at the SLT, what's the fruit? I'm feeding it. And we're like, people were like, yeah, that one, that one, that one, that one, you know, and what's the next one coming? And I'm such a good Catholic. And that they were. Their knowledge was increasing. But we weren't touching their hearts. And we were like, we were not getting fruit. We're not transforming lives. We're educating them. They know more about God. They know more about their scripture, but it just didn't seem to be. So we had to stop and kind of rethink how we were doing adult faith formation. Again, some research, partially because we were cluing into here that if there were small groups, they're more effective. So now we moved to discipleship groups, and none of it's happening in the church hall. It's happening in people's homes, groups of 5 to 6 people. We vetted the material, and then we just kept encouraging everybody, get on a discipleship group. Set up your own discipleship group. Go do this. And be in a small group and grow in your faith and grow in your studies. And you can do a Bible study, blah, blah, blah. And we vetted the material because we want to make sure it was good Catholic theology stuff. And then get it. But the trick was, the magic for us was small groups. But the gist of it, what is in discipleship is, I've already had a relationship with Jesus. Okay? Like that's, I know God is my Savior and Lord. I get it. But I don't know anything else. So now I want to start learning. Learning, growth, maturing, and living, changing my behaviors. Okay? That falls in here. Service is pretty easy. Yeah, go ahead.
So is a discipleship group considered a connect group, or are they different?
They're different.
How are they different?
Connect group, its focus is on Christian fellowship. The model that, and we've experimented with this for several years, and so is HTB, so I'm sharing with you, like, if I could do it again, this is how I would do it. They're a permanent group. Like, you're now a community, you're a family, you're a community inside the community. 25 people, give or take, okay? Generally, life stage matched. So, I'm the leader of a Connect group, and we're called the empty nesters. So we're all either about to retire, just retired, active retirement, but the kids are all gone, okay? And we have different kind of faith issues. But as people graduate from Alpha, and they want to come onto a Connect group, we said, please do not send us a young mom who's dealing with potty training and stuff, because that's just not going to fit. Like, her life issues and our life issues are different. So we did find that matching people up by life stage helped. We've got family-oriented Connect groups. So the entire family goes, the kids and the parents. And the kids stand up and share their witnesses just as much as the parents do. It's really quite cool. And they're permanent. You get to know, love, and care for each other. So a lady in my Connect group has been going for all kinds of tests. She might have cancer. We are praying over her every time we meet. We're phoning and checking in on her. We love her. Like she's one of my best friends. I'm worried about her. I think about her all the time and just checking in. You know, that's what the Connect group does. Okay? It's about the relationship, the community. A discipleship group is temporary. You get together for 6 weeks. You study the Gospel of John. And then you disband. And then maybe you join a different group of people. And you study Lectio Divino prayer style. And then you fold, right? My mom has a discipleship group because it happens to be 5 people live in her apartment building. They were just co-located. And they're like, oh, we'll just go to each other's apartments and we'll do a Bible study together. And they light a little candle and you know, we give them the materials. The trick is, because they're in a nice, intimate, small group, is the discussions. Like, we use Formed. You guys have Formed as well, I understand, right? Great chunk of material, all absolutely Catholic. You never have to worry about that content, right? So we just tell people, fill your boots. There's like a ton of stuff in there. You pick whatever catches your interest, and you're going to learn more about your faith. You're going to learn more about your God, you're going to learn more about Scripture, you're going to learn more about different kinds of prayer, you're growing and learning. But how does it hit here, your heart? Because you're in a small group. Yeah?
What does a Connect Group meeting look like? Is there Bible study? Is there lectio divina, or is it just
All community.
support and community?
All support. I'll walk through the agenda for Connect Group.
Okay.
We start 7 o'clock sharp. So everybody, okay, everybody in my Connect Group has a duty or responsibility. So it's usually at my house. I happen to have a large living room, but someone is assigned to be the greeter because I'm too busy getting stuff. So someone's greeting at the door, but everybody arrives by about 6:45. So I've got a greeter. Someone's responsible to get the coffee and tea on because I don't turn the switch until people arrive. But I've got the food and the stuff. We start at 7 o'clock sharp, and we take turns saying grace because we're practicing different kinds of grace. You may want to research one, but we're helping you learn how to say grace from your heart, right? Then we have a meal. We have 4 leaders for every 25 members. Leaders will also try during the meal, just mingle around and try to keep the discussion more on the faith community, like, you know, how are you and God this week? You know, or my favorite is, hey, got a God story this week? What's your God story? How did, you know, and I'll tell you, I was looking for a parking spot and all of a sudden it was there. I don't, you know. Then we do a little praise and worship. And you're really lucky in your Connect Group if there's a musician. If not, we just, you know, there's like karaoke kind of stuff. Then we do quick announcements. But the announcements are all about what are some faith things that some of us might want to do together. So the Lady of Fatima statue that rotates, you know, goes around and stuff, was coming to our city. This guy was bringing it in, and one of the ladies in our Connect Group had been asked to host something. So she invited all the other ladies in our Connect Group to come to her house on a certain afternoon, and we would venerate and stuff. Okay, so that was like an announcement thing. Or, you know, at a church down on the other side of the city, they're going to be doing, I don't know, something, but that we might all want to go to. But it's not like, oh, there's a lobster supper, or, you know, it's more like faith-based stuff. Then we do an icebreaker, because the more we get to know each other, the more deeply we fall in love. And everybody takes a turn coming up with an icebreaker, and we've had some hilariously fun, really interesting icebreakers, and people are empowered to come up with the ideas. Then there's a sharing. Every person in a Connect Group is expected to do a sharing. Share your story, share your faith story. If they're stuck, then we say, like, pick a saint that inspired you, and do not give me a book report on, you know, Saint so-and-so. It's how did that saint touch you, your heart, inspire your life. You can talk about an experience where you forgave somebody, whatever. But it's always talking about our faith. 2 things are happening. A, we're growing as a team, but B, you're getting practice in sharing your faith. You're getting practice in witnessing, because you're doing it we meet once every 2 weeks from 7 till 9. After the sharing, which might be 15 minutes at the most, right? So it's not like a huge burden on people. Then we break out into small groups. So there's 25 of us, you know, let's say, you know, 5 groups of 3 or 3 groups of 5 or whatever. And we either discuss it, or the person who gave the talk gives us a question to, you know, like, so, you know, how did St. Teresa of Lisieux, if she ever touched your life, or what, you know. So then we just talk about it, which is the most powerful stuff, because, you know, when you're in a smaller group, you can have more discussion, there's more time to talk, and you just kind of share it and explore it together. Then we come back together, praise and worship. We are practicing praise. No, we're practicing. We're just getting better and better at praise and worship, because every 2 weeks we do it. And it's like, boom, and we're picking out songs, and the words mean something. And my Connect Group are the worst singers in the world. We sound terrible, but we love it. You know, but we're into it. And then we do prayer. Because remember what Alpha, remember it says Alpha culture? Like in Alpha, you learn to be prayed over and being prayed with. So we will pray over each other. So as Velda's worried about cancer, like, we all come up, we put our hands on her, we all pray for her. How do you think she feels now? loved. Did she have to go to the priest? No, right? She's got this community of people. And then we do intercessory prayer as well. And then we say the Our Father and we close. And 2 hours, in and out. And everybody has a responsibility. Like, someone does coffee, someone does food, someone does greeting, someone picks grace, someone does a talk, someone does the icebreaker, and it just rotates around.
So going back, everything you're doing, these discipleship programs, everything goes back to that structure of Alpha.
That's right.
Meal, the fellowship, and that's what you meant earlier by really creating the culture of Alpha.
Culture of
in
Alpha.
everything you do.
Yeah.
The whole idea of fellowship, a meal, you know.
And the sharing. So instead of watching Nikki Gumbel videos, now we're doing it ourselves. A couple of I don't want to get down too far in a rat hole on this one, or we're too far, but a couple of things on Connect groups. And from our experience, you have to be an Alpha grad. If you've not done Alpha, don't go into a Connect group, okay? It's okay, you can join discipleship groups and, you know, do small studies. And then we've even had groups where, like, most people had done Alpha, but a couple hadn't. They were just failures, absolute failures, because if you've come out of Alpha, you've already had 10 weeks to get that rhythm of the meal, the prayer, the sharing, the connecting with a team. Like, you've got a reference and you know, understand how it evolves. When you haven't had that experience, it doesn't work. The people don't seem to bond. It's like a prerequisite. And we learned that the hard way. And you know what, we messed up a lot of people because we put them on Connect groups and had high expectations and they were frustrated and it just fell apart and it was not a positive experience.
Yeah, how do we deal with, for example, this summer the kids came back from Steubenville, 35, okay, they're on fire, right,
Yeah.
ready to go, and, you know, of course, they didn't go through Alpha, but one of our goals is to create I want to bring forth a youth Alpha. Also, men and women are going through CEC weekends. We call it, it's Curcio, but
Yeah.
they call it CEC here. Same thing, they're coming off that weekend. Now, built into that structure, they usually encourage them to be a part of a group that meets regularly, which is, in a way, that's a Connect group. So we got that dynamic going on here, too. So they've had the encounter, of course, they're ready to go. So, but I get what you're saying. If they don't go through Alpha, the whole thing with the meal and that's not going to make a lot of.
So two answers to that. One is like, well, give it an experiment. Like, it might work, right? Because they're already having some on fire experience. It might work. But the second thing is, like, get them into Alpha right away. Like right away. And I put them on a team, put them on a table host, right? Like, so they're still experiencing it, but like put them in a doing leadership role, because they're kind of, so give that a try. Remember, like, it's all about experimenting and trying, but I'm sharing with you some of the things we did and didn't work, so save you some time.
How many are on the group, the Connect group? You said 20?
Connect groups, we found 25 is just the right number, and so did Holy Trinity Brompton. Yeah.
But you're saying 25 in someone's home?
Yeah, I know.
That's a lot of people.
You know what? Have you ever had like a family gathering and someone sits on the floor and they sit on the stairs and, right? Because we just know, love, and care for each other.
You're a family.
It works. It works. Mind you, I was coaching in Vancouver. Vancouver's kind of like New York City, and like it's like so expensive, and you spend a fortune for like a 500 square foot apartment. And the guy just looked at me and said, "That isn't going to work in Vancouver. Like, none of us, like our apartment, you couldn't stand 25 people in there, let alone sit and feed." And I was like, "Oh, okay, you guys have a unique challenge. You'll have to, like, well, what do you do when you normally want to get 25 people together? Do you go to a restaurant or what?" But you know, think that. But anyways, it was an interesting challenge. So back down to like getting it defined. So pastoral counsel, you're going to spend a lot of time talking about these. Like, are we all on the same page? What does that mean? What would go here? Why would it go there? You've got to have clarity. So this ministry is really kind of easy. Go
I
ahead.
have one more question
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. I thought I heard you say something about the material has to be vetted. Is that for a Connect group as well as a discipleship group?
No.
Or-
Connect group is just getting together and talking and sharing. Discipleship is about learning, so we wanted to make sure that the materials they had, because you know what, I've learned a lot from the Protestant churches. Let me tell you, they've got hospitality nailed down. But you know, when it comes to Bible study and faith studies, I really want to make sure that it's real Catholic stuff, right? So actually, when you come out, so as an average parishioner is either working on an alpha team, or they're in a ministry, plus they're on a connect group, plus they're in a discipleship group. Our goal is every parishioner is serving on a ministry, is in a connect group, and is in a discipleship program, some kind of adult faith formation. Imagine, dream, every parishioner in your pews, in your church, in 5 years' time, okay? Come on, pastoral council. In 5 years, every parishioner knows the names of everybody around them. They're working in some ministry where their gifts are called. They're in a connect group where they're loved and cared for and have deep relationships. And they're studying, they're learning. It's adult faith for development. You know, when did confirmation become the sacrament of exit?
Exactly.
Right? When did, we stop now, I'm done,
That should be the beginning.
right? Worship is easy. Now, out of ministry, the other thing that we did, and I'll show you, we started, like if we wanted to be missionary disciples, if we wanted to go out and change the world, one of the things we looked at is, within our ministries, how many ministries were internally serving the parish, and how many were externally serving out? And for us, because we just merged 3 churches together, like we were like 80%, because we were also trying to, so, the sacristy, ministers of Eucharist, lectors, hospitality, it's all about us. It's all about, serving the people in the pews, right? But St. Vincent de Paul, or food bank, or visiting seniors' homes, like where's the mission go out stuff? And we knew even before we pulled the numbers, like we're going to be really skewed this way. But our plan, our strategy, our pastoral plan is that over 5 years, it will be way more externally focused, more outreach focused. But within this, you got to develop leaders. So we put under ministry anything to do with developing leaders. First thing we had to do was just people that are in a ministry, help them have an identity for probably the first time. I'm a leader. I'm a leader in this church. Because I do hospitality. In the beginning, I'm like, I'm not the leader of hospitality. I'm the scheduler. I just do the schedule. I just, like, who's greeting on 9 Mass and 11 Mass and 4 Mass, right? That's all I do. But then when we start changing the identity, well, actually, you're a leader. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. And then there's a whole culture of how you help people, start to change their identity. I'm a leader. I'm a disciple. Who am I leading? Where am I leading them to? What is this vision for hospitality? Or what is this vision for ministers of the Eucharist? Or what is it, So they had to have their own little visions. Leadership pipeline, remember we talked about that? And how did we put that into every single ministry? Using your gifts. Discipleship was all about discerning your gifts. This is about learning, right? Learning and growing. This is about using and serving. So, senior leadership team, what is your process, and how do people know what the process is? How do I go, how do I learn about my gifts? And B, how do I then match them up with a ministry? What's your process? Because if I'm a parishioner here, I just moved in, what do I do? Where do I go, right? So we started rolling out strength finders first and encouraging everybody. Yeah.
I don't know if everyone's aware here, but the diocese, the Office of Evangelization is in the process of training leaders to train leaders.
Great.
So they're going to provide that resource and So that's exciting. So they're gonna give us the help and the resources with that, whoever wants that. So.
Awesome, awesome. And remember I told you earlier on, is like, so if I'm a baby disciple, and I want to just put my toe in and test it, like what could I do? So we really worked on this, like first serve. And as soon as a new parishioner joins our parish, or you know, the new, like we're on top of that right now. It's like, oh great, welcome. You know, where would you like to help out? Would you be interested in like helping in the office or helping with hospitality? We found all these like little simple things that they could start to get in. Yeah.
So is there any resistance to that? Like when they come in and join the parish and you try to get them involved in even a baby step? Is
Nope.
there never any resistance?
But we designed a process that removed any resistance. Protestants are really good at this, and there's some really, really good books on how to do it. Like there's this, I'm doing it, there's 2 phases to hospitality. There's first impressions, and then there's connecting and connecting them into the church. So if you start thinking about hospitality relative to first impressions, and I'm doing a lot of research on this because I'm writing a whole new strategy for our hospitality. So yeah, I got a greeter at the door. But do we collect any information? Like, can we phone you or email you? And most people are okay. And how do I make you feel comfortable giving me your email address? And then, so that's on Sunday. On Monday, they'll get an email from the pastor. Well, you know, or anyways, I don't want it to be the pastor we're playing like, but you get an email from somebody saying, oh, so glad you came. You know, I hope you enjoyed the preaching on blah, blah, blah. Next Sunday is going to be part 2, 3, whatever. Would love to have you come back. There are some parishes that then would put in like a $5 gas card, pay for your gas to come back to Mass. Or if you're in New York, at one subway pass. Like, we haven't done this, but I'm just saying that there's like reducing the resistance. I'm not sure we're there yet, but do you know what? I've got best practice and where I'm at. And we're going to play around with it. If they come back a second time, how do you figure out they're back for a second time? Number 2, what kind of email and follow-up do they get after the second time? If they come back a third time, how do you now get them more?
Well, I can interject there, guys. Part of this is like, if you're the amount of like, well, the phenomenon of startup churches in the Protestant world, it's a whole thing, right? So if there's an empty bay across the street at a strip mall, and some guy or woman feels called to ministry, this is what happens.
Yeah, they'll just like.
Okay, so I start with me and maybe my wife and dog and 2 other people, right? But from the get-go, they have to be entrepreneurial, right? So there's that spirit in this, which is they're not going to just come in my door. So this whole loop of like, you know, they talk about like the front door and the back door, right? Which is like a church which is going, you have more people coming in the front door and back door. And strategies for that. You know, and if we're not having a lot of people come in our front door, it means our people aren't inviting.
Right.
But the whole mindset is like, again, the Catholic thing is, and this happened to a certain extent in our diocese. I'm not trying to be unfair or anything, but we built St. Charles Borromeo Parish, right? And it's really not growing, right? Because that's the old model was they're building homes out there.
Mm-hmm. Build it and they will come.
And we'll probably build a school, we're not sure. And it's 12, 13 years on, and it's like that model does not work, right? And so the mindset shift to becoming, once again, entrepreneurial. Don't count your families. Any parish that says we have 3,000 families, no you don't. You got about 500 families in your neighborhood, right? So that we refer too much to those numbers, and it holds us back from being entrepreneurial.
Or evangelistic.
Yes. I mean, yeah. So
Yeah.
solve out the word, and that's the word in this context.
That's right.
You know, so all this lingo that Eileen's put, it's like this is Protestant shop talk right here. Right?
Mm-hmm. It
can
is.
become Catholic shop talk.
Yeah.
It needs to.
Yeah. But we're back down to like, who should have the best hospitality in the world? What, I'll call it industry, or should have the best hospitality in the globe?
The church.
Should be a church. Who's got good hospitality? Hotels. like the worst hospitality sometimes is a church.
DMV.
But remember those pew hogs and nobody greets you at the door and you can't find the washroom and like why would I invite my neighbor that I talk to over the fence to my church? I'd be embarrassed.
Because we have the Eucharist.
Right, yeah, but we've got the Eucharist. Right. So welcome to a new model. We haven't changed the gospel. We haven't changed the mission. Right? We're just changing the methods. It's 2018. You know what they did in, 1250 wouldn't work today. So why do we think what we did in 1950 works? And by the way, for those of us who have lost our children from the church, the last 50 years of catechetics, not working so well. How many of our kids are on fire for the Lord? So that's it. Worship is pretty straightforward. Right? But really, I kind of got into the rebuild, like it's all about the weekend. So if that worship experience is not a worship experience, if it's just a boring duty, my parents took me to Mass every Sunday, so I'll go to Mass every Sunday. I'm a good Catholic. I'll go to Mass, but, the Eucharist is just like, I'll just get in line. It's not like, whoa. This is God. And there's been a lot of research, and Father James came down, it's all about hymns, hospitality, and homilies. So strategies, excellent preaching that drives the culture, drives discipleship. Hospitality, start picking up how you did it in Alpha, because it's a culture, and it's everybody's responsibility for Alpha. And hymns, get some good praise music. One of the first things Father James did, an awful lot of our church members, I don't know how you guys do it here, but they were Catholic songs, but they were more, intercession or whatever. And he was like, no, this is the Mass. Every song is going to be a worship-based song. Okay. And then we played around with, we had different styles of music for each Mass. And that was a big debate at Pastoral Council. Should it be the same? Or should it be different? Like, there's pros and cons. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. We just had to land on one. And start to improve the quality. One of our early on hires was a part-time director of music. And guess what he did? He led through the teams, okay? So he had all the choirs and music selection, and it probably took 3 years, but shifted out the musicians and the the singers, and guess what? They now pray. They go, our choirs go for adoration, not once a month, but I know they go adoration on a fairly regular basis. They pray before they rehearse. They study the scripture that's relative, so like, let's be disciples as well. So anyways, I digress. So I kind of gave you a lot more detail than I meant to give you. 5 systems of a church. Spend some time getting a common definition of them. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you were talking about, so I can relate to what you're talking about with kids, because I have 2 young adults. But it's, we go back to that model of you're a good Catholic, bad Catholic. It's like, no, are you an alive Catholic or a dead Catholic?
Yeah.
Are you an awakened Catholic or a sleeping Catholic?
Absolutely.
Thank you for making that point, because that was speaking for me.
Yeah, yeah. How many, we had a lot of parishioners like, well, I don't need to go to Alpha. I'm a good Catholic. I'm a good person. I'm a good Catholic, right? And then a lot of these were, again, they were like pillars of the church, loved God, did all the sacraments. But, towards the end, they're like, maybe I'm going to try this out, because everybody's talking about it, I'm going to go. And I've seen, good Catholics, just all of a sudden, they just came alive. They were like, it just means so much more to me. I just I know that's Jesus right there, right? But now it's like, wow, that's Jesus. Me, he loves me. It took them to a whole new aliveness. So, and then we have diehard atheists who were invited, right? And they're on fire on the Lord. And we've even had gay people come be accepted as a child of Jesus, go through Alpha, and then want to learn more, and then start to come to terms with our own personal sinfulness, want to go to reconciliation, want to start to change their behaviors. So I just throw that out as a real extreme. Because how would a homosexual person feel walking into one of our churches today? Judged, right? Not welcome, scorned, full of shame, right? So they need to have a relationship with Jesus. Then they need to learn more about him. And then they're going to change their behaviors and serve. But right now, we're not an overly welcoming place. We're not condoning it. We're not saying what you're doing is. But you know what? How many of us here are a sinner? Okay. Some of our sins are maybe not as evident. But we're all sins. We're all sinners. So, pastoral counsel. One of the things you're going to do is clarify the 5 systems. One of the things I encourage you to do is, so you get the common definition. Here's a jumpstart thing I did. So right out of the gate, when you're getting started, get some definition on this. Then do a mini vision. Like you don't have any facts, you don't have data, just sit down and say, what's our mini vision for evangelization in 5 years? What's our mini vision for fellowship in 5 years? And I'm throwing out things like, in 5 years' time, every single person in the pew is going to be in ministry, in a connect group. Like, start to write that out. Then, you're not going to have all your data yet. Then kind of do a SWOT. Where are we today? No facts, no data. Just sit down like, well, okay, well, what are we doing well in evangelization? What would be some opportunities? What's holding us back? It's called threats, but to me it's like, what's holding us back? What are some of the challenges? Okay, and what are our opportunities? Then sit down and very quickly say, okay, what's 5 things we could do to get from where we are today to where we want to be? And then prioritize them and give it to your senior leadership team, and they can get started on 2018. They've got their first priority. Then, pastoral council, then you're going to go back, you're going to redo the whole thing, but now you're going to do it with facts and data. But senior leadership team and the rest of the parish needs to get started. So you can do a real quick mini one. Does that help?
Like under each system, just name 5 things that need to be done, like immediately.
Yeah, yeah. And then you're going to prioritize, because you cannot do 25 things, right? You're going to pick of all those 25, what's the one we should focus on? So any extra dollars, any extra hours go to that one priority.
The SLT takes that and
Giddy up, go. Figure out how to make it happen. Start making changes in the parish. So I have one parish, I helped them do this, and I think they had, right out of the gate was some alpha as a culture. They weren't doing anything for invitational and hospitality, so they were going to focus on that. And then their second thing was communications. So they had it for the latter part of 2019. They were going to hire someone for communications, because they knew that from some of the culture change stuff they wanted to do. But I had another parish, and that how it worked out for them and where they were at, they were like, they wanted to get Alpha up and running. Or no, they were doing Alpha, but it wasn't working well. So they needed to go back and really study it. And they thought then they would do connect groups, but they weren't going to do them until 2020. So for the next 18 months, the priority was, how can we take the Alpha we're doing right now and make it, we're not seeing the fruit coming out of the end. So we know we're doing something wrong. I remember I told you there's some, if you treat Alpha as a program or as a process, it will fail. If you treat it as a culture, okay, it will change your whole parish. So I'm just getting different parish, because you're all in different places. You've all got different strengths. But that's your jump start. That's jump start. Let's get going. Okay. Now, pastoral council. Now you're going to go back and you're going to start collecting analysis. You're going to get some internal analysis and you're going to get some external analysis. This may take you 6 months, it might take you 2 years, okay? Took us about 1.5 years, okay? And then you put it all together, and that's why people who have that are able to think strategically or long-term, these are people that can connect dots, that their brains connect dots and concepts. You don't have to have everybody like that, but it just kind of helps, because then you can take all this data and then you go, whoa, look at that. We need that. That's going to be a problem in the future. Or look at this great opportunity. Okay? So let's talk about these a little bit. Now, this I have in an Excel spreadsheet Gantt chart. Maybe I could show it up. I'll go through this and then I'll show you, which will be yours to have. And in it, it's like a project plan. It says, what date do we start this analysis? When are we going to finish it? Who's responsible? We've all seen to-do lists, right? Depending on who's on your pastoral council, you can even divvy that up. Who's going to go do ministry analysis? Grab some people, come back in 2 months. Who's going to do sacramental analysis? Who's going to do staff and structure analysis? And you divvy up, okay? These are all internal. So financial analysis. I don't care about I do sort of care about the budgets, but you go to the finance council and say, what are the long-term capital plans? Like, are we going to need to replace the roof in 5 years? It's kind of nice to know that when you're mapping out a 5-year plan that says, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. Oh, we don't have any money because the roof's going to fall in. Kind of need to know that, right? So I asked our finance council for a capital plan, and I asked them things like our mortgage and money we owe to the archdiocese. When do we think that would be paid off? Just kind of some general stuff, and I've got some samples. Communications analysis. So what do we communicate? Who do we communicate? How do we? Okay, so we've got a website, and we've got some signs, and we've got a bulletin or a newsletter or whatever. One of the parishes I was coaching, they are on one of the super busiest intersections in their subdivision. Big, huge intersection. And then they've got the parking lot and their church is in the back. They've got the most primo spot for a big digital sign. You know, like it's St. John Vianney, you know, join us for Alpha. Like everybody would see it. It wasn't until they did this communications analysis and realized what a gift they had. So then they went to finance and said, what would it cost? When do you think we could afford one? And how would it tie into evangelization? So, but it was only doing that analysis. Parish demographics. And I got a list up here, but you know, gender, age, income, diversity, language. Like a lot of parishes, how many parishioners are Hispanic and only speak Spanish? How many are English and only speak English? How many are bilingual? It kind of makes a difference in where you're going forward. You need to know that. The ME25 or any other kind of analysis, rich with data. And do you even know what your processes are? Remember we talked about like, what's your process for developing a leader? What's your process for getting, you know, so sit down, because don't be surprised if the first time you do this you go, I don't know, and we probably have none. Okay. But you probably have an RCIA process. Like how do people get into RCI? You might have something like that. But don't be surprised of these things. External ones, we call it Stats Canada, Statistics Canada, and they've got like the database of stats of every neighborhood. And I know the States has one, I just forget what it's called. But the statistical database for population. How many people live in Omaha?
Census data.
Census data, thank you. So get access to that. We looked at neighborhood services, neighborhood demographics, development. And I'll show you in a second. We happen to be in an area of the city where there's huge development going on. Tons of buildings going in, tons of apartments going in still. And we thought we were full up. until we sat down as pastoral council and realized we are going to, our population is going to increase by 16,000 parishioners, or 16,000 people, and based on census data, probably 20% of them are going to be Catholic. Probably. Well, hello, evangelization. The harvest is ripe. And if those people came and they all donated $10 per week, you know, not that money was a driver, but it was trying to get a sense of like, oh, and then we could do all sorts of things. But pastoral council did that analysis. Traffic patterns. People who come to your parish come because of the traffic patterns, right? We mapped it all out. I'll show you in a minute. Is like, look at that. There's this highway goes here and here and here. And most of our parishioners come within that area. But if they're on the other side of the highway, they tend to go to other parishes. But the Archdiocese had this map out of nowhere that had absolutely nothing, no relevance to where people were coming to our church. Duh, if the city's planning to change the highway or doing something, it might have an impact on what you're doing. Neighborhood, I call poverty, not just financial poverty, but spiritual poverty, mental poverty. There's poor sections in every community. And what services are there for them? Other best practices, partnership analysis. Okay, who could you or are you partnering with? Okay, I'll use an example. There's a charity in Canada called Chalice. They're a little bit like a foster care thing, but it's 100% Catholic, extremely, and it's actually led, or the head office is in Halifax. So when we had some people thinking, oh, we should do missions, you know, we should all go to Haiti. Why would we do that when there's an organization? So we would partner with them. Remember we talked about the outreach, to build an outreach center in the poor area of our neighborhood and serve that community with some extra services. We could partner with other Christian churches, and we could all do it together. There was just like, there's different ways of partnering and thinking about it. You don't have to do it all yourself. And that's an outside in. Take a look at a peer group for benchmarking. Now you guys are okay, because you're probably about the average size, and there's a whole bunch of parishes in Divine Renovation Network that are the same size. But I was working with St. Anne's in Dallas, and they are humongous. They've got like 15,000 people per Sunday, 7 masses, 2 languages. Like, I just said, you need to benchmark yourself against other mega-sized churches, and you might not find a Catholic one. But their issues were very unique. If you're a small country, small town parish, what we're doing at St. Gerald and St. Benedict, not relevant. They need to look at similar situations. Or if you're out in the country, don't benchmark yourself, or look to a city, you know, an inner city where apartments are only 500 square feet is different than Omaha, where we all live on farms, and it's like lots of space. See what I'm saying? So, I'm just going to quickly show you. So here's the Excel spreadsheet that I will give to you. Can you guys see this? So let's just take a ministry analysis, okay? So somebody's going to own this. Go get a list, prepare a list of all the data you have on file for your ministries, like whatever you know. How many, who's the leader, anything you can find about them. Get it on a list, okay? So we discovered we had 90 ministries when we first did this. We were like, oh. Okay. We learned the hard way that more is not better, by the way, but at first we thought it was. There was a lot of ministries that really should die a natural death. And there was a lot of new ministries that needed to go, or to grow. Anyway, then we mapped those ministries. We used like yellow stickies. which were like serving internally and which were serving externally, because our mission statement was to go out and change the world, right? Then we mapped them against the 5 systems, and in our day, like, we had zero under fellowship, and the only thing we had under evangelization was alpha, and we only had one kind of alpha at the time, right? And then we had lots and lots under service. We had a fair number under worship. We had this much on administration, like, you know. And then we found ministries we had no idea what they were and why they existed, but they'd come in from one of the 3 churches. So then you, is there anything else that's unique to your church that in terms of ministry? I was working with another parish, and they have a shrine as part of their church. It's they've got some relics and stuff. So they had to add that in and then decide, is that part of their vision and mission, or is it something separate? Because if people are going to serve and help, is that going to take away from something else? Then you sit down as a group and like, okay, so what are your insights? I call them, what's your ahas? Oh, look at that. Cool. Were there issues, challenges? And now here's the other one. We don't know. Don't be surprised if you're going to spend a lot of time going, oh, we have no idea. We don't know that. So that's data you're going to probably want to start collecting for your next. So at least say, oh, we need to go and learn that. But we'll have to start collecting it go forward. Remember we talked about our alpha? I was like, we need to know how many people from alpha come back. Well, we weren't even measuring how many people are in alpha. So this is a sample, like sacramental analysis, attendance, styles, demographics, music, giving, special services, hospitality, homily, trends, like baptisms over time. We set a goal that we were going to double our sacraments in 5 years. Then as we understood discipleship a whole lot better, we turned around and said, I don't care if you're in grade 7, you're not getting confirmed until you have a personal relationship with Jesus. And we put together a youth alpha, right? And then the youth discerned when they were ready to receive the sacrament. So guess what happened to our numbers? Guess how many letters went to the bishop? But we felt, because we had this plan, we had a strategy, and we said this, and now we're getting like more confirmations than many of our other sister parishes, and these are, like, we had 42 students going to Steubenville out of our church, and most of them were leaders, and they were like leading other kids, and they are evangelizing, like they get confirmation. We experimented with, you couldn't get married unless you did alpha, but that was really tricky, marriages, 10 weeks. Anyways, we're still playing around with that, okay? So I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail on this. I wanted to show you, I'll go back to the other one. You're collecting internal data and external data. You're sitting back as a council and you're studying, and what are the issues, and what are the insights, and what are the ahas. And then you're mapping it up to here. And now when you redo your mini visions and you redo your SWOTs, you'll have even greater clarity of what your pastoral plan is. But it doesn't hurt to do a quick one to jumpstart the senior leadership team while you go and study all this. And you can decide how quickly you want to do it, because you'll set these dates and times. And you're going to lead from out of a team. So we were looking at, I'll show you some of the analysis we did. I think I'm going to, because I just thought it was really cool. So this was put together by someone in our pastoral council who had really good information in census data, and he had the ME25 data. I think this was just the census data. So where he got the data from, you can tell that this was our 2012 plan. And so he got this map, and this was like, I think by postal code. And then he was looking at the population of the neighborhood to the population data that we got out of the ME25, which was our parish, right? And then he's like, okay, so if in the neighborhood 46% are male, but inside our church only 36 are male. We're looking at the harvest versus what's in the barn. Okay. He then looked at the population, more like this was by age, and it's interesting because this was our parish, and I think why were we lived in a neighborhood that was like a lot of families compared to the whole neighborhood. I'm just like, so he had a ball. So this is where our families were residing, and we did this with our postal codes. And it gave and look at this road. See this highway? And then there's another highway there, and then there's another highway comes down here, and our church is right there in the middle. So guess what was the number one reason people came to our church?
Access.
Right.
Center of the hub.
Yeah. It was kind of insightful for us. Look at the nuns. We call them the nuns, right? So clearly, if there's that many people who are Catholic, and we looked at who actually was coming to Mass, then okay, number one, maybe just getting Catholics to come would be a good place to start, and then we'll go after the nuns. So remember Alpha, mostly our parishioners. Now our parishioners are inviting people. Some more stuff. He was looking at education, marital status. That was interesting. Oh, and I think this was the whole population, and then he compared it to our church. I'm just trying to show you a kind of analysis that was done. Interesting, eh? Arabic. We have a ton of Filipinos in our shelter costs. This helped us figure out where some of the areas of poverty were versus the areas where the gift of giving should be sitting. Or, and I don't want to make it sound like we're looking for money, but were these people really living lives as disciples? Okay, so I mean, I'm just showing you samples there, okay? And then here's another one we did. So, I grew up in this neighborhood, like, you know, it's called Clayton Park, and looked pretty full to me. And one day I was driving down the road and I was like, wow, there's like a subdivision going in there. That used to be just trees. I didn't realize how many of those trees were there. And then I went down to our movie theater, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, that whole big hill over there. And I was like, wait a minute, like, where'd all this come from? Pastoral council. So we found a couple of parishioners that were in the real estate industry. One lady owned a real estate company, like big real, and another guy was in commercial real estate. They're very active in our church. And we said, would you come and help out pastoral council? We want to take a look at the development that's going on. We don't even know who to call to get this information. They're like, oh, yeah, I know every developer. I know who to talk to down at City Hall. You probably just want to know about what City Hall permits there are. And we were like, great. So they worked with one person on pastoral council. We're leading out of teams. And they sat down and did this analysis. So, again, remember we were looking at where we were, postal codes, and then they went in and looked at, went inside the City Hall approved permits of what was being built and what was going to be built. And like, we even had links like directly into what is on file at City Hall that's going to be developed, and how many units they were planning to build. And we ended up with this. Like, in 5 years, we were already full. Remember we were saying, hey, you know what, our pews are already 80% full, and we know that that can scare some people away, and we want to be evangelizing. And there's another 3,000 potentially coming, or we should be evangelizing, we should be welcoming them. Are we ready? Because those buildings are physically under construction today. And in 5 years' time, they will be built and with people in them. So are we going to wait until we have a problem? Or are we going to have a strategy and be intentional? That's something that pastoral council did. Okay? You don't want your pastor and your senior leadership team running around trying to figure out what's going on in City Hall. But your pastoral council can come to them and say, you know what? I'm pretty sure in 5 years' time we're going to have a capacity problem. Not something you need to fuss about right now, but we're going to have a couple of other breakout sessions and we're going to start exploring this in more detail. So I just wanted to show those to you as samples of some of the kind of work that a pastoral council would do. So let's take a break, because the oxygen level is disappearing in here. And I would encourage everybody to go inside. Like, we need some more oxygen in here.
What time?
Let's say 10 minutes. Is that okay?
Eileen, you'll give us access.
Absolutely, because that's for your pastoral council. There's your plan. Start plugging in dates and names.
You know, when I was
Instead of coming in 6 drinks later.
Yeah. No, it might.
already the grant.
The 24th, and the 23rd.
Shut down. He said that
Do both.